Did you know you can cut a willow almost to the ground and it'll come back stronger? Welcome back to Andyn Farm. Today we're going to talk about coppicing and pollarding willow. It's fast, it's easy and it's sustainable. So what is coppicing and what is pollarding? Basically, this trunk last year we pollarded, so we've taken it off at a height approximately 2 foot high, which has then given me all this lovely strong growth. All of these rods are this year's growth. Coppicing will be what we're going to do to this tree eventually. So we're going to come in and we're going to cut it right down at the base, which is then going to produce a whole mass of new stems from the base. So pollarding is cutting to a height. You decide the height you want your rods to start from and your new growth to come from. And we do that quite a lot where we're growing willow in hedges. Coppicing is cutting down to the ground and all of the growth will be removed back to the stumps. Coppicing and pollarding are ancient techniques that have been used for centuries. It encourages really strong new growth in the tree itself and its quick results. Willow is great because all of this growth is this year's growth. So all these rods we're going to harvest is just from this year. So why coppice or pollard a tree? Basically, the most important thing with coppicing and pollarding is it's sustainable and it's renewable. By cutting it back hard, as we're going to do again now, what you tend to get are lovely straight rods, varying sizes. This particular willow gives you fantastic stem colour in the winter. It's not sunny just now, but the stem colour with this contrasts really, really nicely against the hornbeam shapes that we've got behind us here. So you coppice it, you get lovely flexible rods, which you can use. You can make into various things, and also it keeps the tree healthy as well. The best time for cutting back and coppicing and pollarding would normally be late winter or very early in the spring. You need to make sure that you're doing it while the tree is still dormant, and again, avoid bird nesting season at all costs. In the garden, if you were growing that in your garden as a feature, I'd leave it over the winter and then I'd be cutting it in January or February because that winter stem colour looks fantastic over the winter. But because we've got so much willow, that's why we start harvesting in December. The key tools when you're coppicing and pollarding, my favourite, bypass secateurs, pruning loppers for slightly bigger stems. Pruning loppers are great because you can actually cut probably up to 1.5 inch diameter stem, whereas the secateurs really are for inch and a quarter should be about the maximum. 1.5 inch to 2 inch would then be for a pair of sharp loppers. Anything bigger, or to make it easier, pruning saw. This is a pruning saw, so this cuts on the pull rather than, for example, a bow saw that would cut in both directions, which is again an old traditional saw. This is a very sharp Japanese saw, but again it's what I use. It's a company called Silky that make it. They're very sharp, very reliable, and I would actually use that up to 9-12 inch diameter pruning cuts without any problems whatsoever. It's one of my favourite go-to staple tools that I would use. I would always favour using a handsaw these days rather than using a chainsaw because you'd always get a cleaner cut. If I was quite happy to leave this as the pollard that we cut to last year, I would simply be coming just above a bud and removing the stems, thus. That is quite simple. So as you can see, with the thinner stems, no issues whatsoever with a pair of secateurs. With the larger stems, we're going to come in with a pair of loppers and just cut straight through. Again, when you're cutting, ideally just above a bud, but you can see within a couple of minutes we're generating some lovely rods that I'm going to be able to do something with afterwards. So all of this growth comes off and then we're going to leave this. This would then be classed as a pollard. We'd be leaving this. This is the stall, so this is where I'm cutting back to, and all of this growth will then regrow next year. So these will then reshoot from these points and produce these rods. If I was leaving that as a pollard, then that would be absolutely fine, and we'd just literally leave it as it is, probably just give it a feed, and that will regrow back strongly next year. With this particular one, because it's now grown a little bit too near to this post, I'm going to coppice it. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to make a cut quite close to the ground, just above this lower shoot here. So I'm going to chop this actual trunk back all the way down to there, which is going to be a pruning saw job. This is going to form a whole multitude of new shoots coming from this base rather than coming from the stump for next year. There we go. So that is a coppiced willow. If we'd left the stump and just cut back, that would be pollarded. So that's the difference. In the spring, I'll get new buds coming all the way around the outside, and this will form a new head of willow growing up all the way around, and those will form the new rods for next year. And then this time next year, that stall will be able to be cut back and we'll reharvest it again from the base. No, if you're doing this on a young healthy tree, then you don't have to worry about killing the tree. All I would recommend is once you've carried out the coppicing or pollarding as you see fit, always give it a good feed so it's got the nutrients ready to go away for next spring, and keep it well watered next summer if it's dry. If you're coppicing into an old tree, as long as it's healthy and as long as you keep it fed and watered afterwards, it should be fine. But there's always a chance to always just check it's a healthy tree and that there's no disease there before you try and carry it out into an old tree. Coppicing can be carried out every year with willow. It can be carried out every 2 or 3 years. It depends on how big you want to be able to have the rods. So that's a 1 year Salix britzensis rod, which is probably standing at about 9 foot high. If I wanted to build a tunnel or a big garden structure and I wanted bigger rods, I'd leave it for 2 or 3 years before I coppice. And that will give me a much bigger rod to be able to work with. This is one that's traditionally grown in Lancashire, called Green Dick, which is what they used to call the withies or the rods in Lancashire. So that's this variety here. The reason that I spin it round is just to get the fibres a little bit more flexible, because that we'll quite often use then for, as I say, tying and securing. There we go. And that now gives me a nice bundle of willow ready for when we want to use it. In one of the later videos, I'll show you how we use willow around the farm. If you found that useful, then please let us know by hitting the like button, and subscribe if you'd like to see some more videos. If you need to get hold of us for any gardening questions, then in the description we've now done an email link so you can email them straight through to us. Did you get the bird in it? There was a wren in there.